And it's a beautiful morning here in the Peg City, and this is Coffee with Graeme with your host, Graeme Forsyth, and hope y'all have your cup of joe ready for you to get started with this show. And today we got Marc Beghin joining the show. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that right, but we're going to ask Marc in just a minute here. But Marc is the VP of the Red River Lacrosse Association, as well as he's involved in the Manitoba Lacrosse Association. Man, I'm just butchering my words already, but it's early in the morning. You're here, I'm here, and Marc is here right now. And Marc Beghin joining the show. How's it going, Marc?
Fantastic. Super happy that summer's finally here and we're getting out a little bit more. Things are looking up.
Yeah, and you gotta love this weather we've been having lately. It's been hot. It's been in the mid to high 20s lately. A little bit of rain coming maybe soon, but there's nothing wrong with a little bit of water.
No, it cleans it up. It's
Yeah,
good for the grass, good for the flowers, good for
yeah,
the fields.
for sure, for sure. Good for the field. So you're the VP at Red River Lacrosse Association, as well as you're involved in the Manitoba Lacrosse Association. But I just want to get a bit of your background in lacrosse. I'm assuming you played growing up.
I played later. I played in high school. I really picked it up later in life. I wish I had more time into it. I'm a bigger individual. Too heavy for hockey, too small for football, even though I played both. Just the right size for lacrosse, but played Oak Park for a while, co-captains, and then later on, I connected with some individuals I played Team Manitoba with, and they got me into box lacrosse in the senior men's. And from there, it's been an absolute history. And I've met some of the best people in my life through lacrosse, and some of the best opportunities in my life came through lacrosse, and that led itself to coaching with a provincial team, coaching a club team, coaching some high school teams around the city here in Winnipeg, and then head coaching Team Manitoba also.
So you said you started playing in high school a little bit later on in your life. When did you exactly start playing in high school?
You know what? It'd probably be so. It's been a few years since, but I picked up at high school age really. So our team only started when I was basically in grade 12. So we fired it up and it started working. That same year, I had the fortunate opportunity to make Team Manitoba also in my first year, which was awesome. I was a hockey player that spent a lot of time at the rinks, and I was a football player up to that time, probably already a couple years. So I was a hockey player with a football player size, and I said, "Here's a stick. You can hit people, you can slash people, but you can run around and have some fun." And it just took off from there. So that's really how it started. So I just joined my local high school, and that's actually how a lot of the introduction for a lot of players now comes that way. We do have a local box lacrosse program that starts parallel to hockey from like small kids all the way up to we're working around a junior age, and then there's some senior drop-in. No real league for senior. We don't have that for field, although we're working on something like that. It's tough. It's a little bit more challenging. It's a lot during the summer, and there's no established program. But that's when I picked it up. It was in high school. A lot of people, there's like 19 or 20 teams in the league now. Manitoba High School Field Lacrosse Association's well organized. They have like super Fridays where they'll play like a whole bunch of teams like together and play. The provincials are phenomenal to watch. It's like just fields upon fields of the sport. It's really exciting.
So you said that you were a hockey player as well. So you played a bit of hockey starting off. So how is hockey different from lacrosse in the terms of like the team aspect of the game, the physicality? How is it? Because lacrosse obviously a different beast than hockey. How really different is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. We get this all the time too. So, and we'll just give you a quick note. We like to survey our membership. For the past 2 years, we've surveyed our membership in the Red River Lacrosse Association, which is the indoor box lacrosse. 77% of our players play hockey, which is pretty crazy. So, what is the physicality of it? Is how can I say it? Lacrosse is more pure. You're running and you're catching, where hockey is more synthetic. So you're on a blade, on ice. It's an unnatural situation. Speeds are accelerated. So there is that parallel. The offense and defense in lacrosse, and specifically box lacrosse, relative to hockey, because those are the closest two parallels.
Yeah.
The offense and defense is like basketball. So motion offense, zone defense, man-to-man, stuff like that doesn't always work in hockey, works completely in lacrosse. And in fact, if you watch a lacrosse game, I was just watching the Michael Jordan Last Dance, and they were talking about the triangle offense. And the triangle offense is exactly what we do, basically. There's an off ball and on ball. It's very similar, except for you get to push people around a little bit. So it's in that respect. A lot of people do think about lacrosse, mainly box lacrosse, and lacrosse in general is a very physical, overly physical sport, right? It's not, actually. It's very controlled. If you get pushed on the back, there's a lot of minor calls, rather, like possession calls and stuff for things like that. Yeah. But it's very controlled. It has its moments. The sticks are smaller, so relative to hockey, so the leverage, other than field lacrosse, which has big sticks, it doesn't hurt as much. We're armored up from all the way down. We have kidney pads, we have shoulder pads, chest protector. So the parallels are there. 5-on-5 inside a box. In fact, box lacrosse was originally designed in the 30s for NHL players and hockey players to do something in the off season. And if you go back in the archives, you'll see Montreal Canadiens box lacrosse team. You'll see Toronto Maple Leafs box lacrosse team, and a few other ones like that as well too. So field lacrosse is a little bit different. It's a little bit slower, much like indoor soccer versus outdoor soccer, right? So, outdoor soccer is a little bit slower, more a team game. You have plays that kind of develop a little bit slower, where indoor soccer is faster, moves a lot quicker, just like hockey and indoor lacrosse. So, yeah.
And that's really cool to see that you touch back on it. If you look at the archives, that NHL teams and players were kind of using lacrosse as a substitute in the off season to kind of get some reps in, keep up that condition. You kind of already answered my question for me. Look at you answering my questions already. But you talked about box and field lacrosse.
Yep.
You talked about the differences. What do you prefer better? Did you have a preference over box or field?
Well, those who know me I'm a big guy. I'm a defensive player. Running around the field is challenging, to say the least, and as you get older, it's harder. I like indoor box lacrosse. We have a 30-second shot clock also, so it's a really, really fast. The pace is very quick. There is physicality to it. You can't run out of bounds. That's good for me because I can't really chase everyone down, which is great. But box lacrosse is something that we would recognize more as Canadians or as hockey players than field lacrosse. Field lacrosse itself would be, it is accepted. It's very big out west, big out east. It's a challenge here because it runs into football season and our summer is very short. Yeah. Field lacrosse is great also. Field lacrosse has this methodical, strategic, high skill explosiveness that's got a lot of teamwork and timing to it. It's really kind of fun to watch too. It's more of a strategy game. Between the two, I'm torn. I have my moments. As a player, I like a player and spectator. I lean more towards box lacrosse, but respect for the game and understanding the heritage. Field lacrosse is also really fantastic.
Right. And you touched on it that you're a bigger guy, that you said that lacrosse, it's more of a physical sport, but you touched on that you don't really have to be the biggest guy to play. Do you think that there's kind of that misconception that you have to be bigger and the strongest to play lacrosse, and you could be a smaller guy? Like, I'm pretty small. You think smaller guys should get into it too?
100%. And it's not about, and that's just my story, right? But the average individual, the body type varies quite a bit, right? But my whole point is that if there's not one sort of body type. Hockey for a long time was really looking for that 6'5". They still are 6'5", 280-pound behemoth, right? It's only when they clean up the rules that now we have smaller individuals who are skilled in there. There's still a lot of room for skilled players. And there's role playing. So I'm a defensive player. I played on what they call the back gate. So our changes are a little bit different at the higher levels. It's not always, it's more like, I won't get into that. It's a little too complicated. But as far as size and physicality goes, there's definitely a spot. Some of our best goal scorers are smaller guys like 5'6", because they can move and spin. It's hard to check a guy that small. It's extremely hard. I can see your frame. You'd be hard to check if you had really good feet and you moved around very quickly, because you can also sneak in between gaps and holes. So I think it's more accepting. It's more accepting. It does lean itself to running. Let's leave it at that at the very least.
And you talk about the equipment too. There's obviously equipment in every sport, but is there any odd names for any equipment in lacrosse, or is it like anything different that people really don't know about?
I think the big thing with lacrosse is that people don't realize that we wear kidney pads. So we have kidney pads and spine protectors that go halfway up our back and go all the way around the inside because it's tucked underneath our jersey. You can't really see it. Some lacrosse players look like barrels, and that's a part of it is their physicality, but the other part is the equipment. The equipment's designed a little bit differently. Shoulder pads relative to hockey have more of a pivot, so you can raise your arm, which is really kind of important too because the game is played in 3 dimensions, right? Hockey is more 2-dimensional. Like the puck is on the ground, it slides around, but the ball's in the air all the time for lacrosse. It does hit the ground and there's our battles, but really it lives in the air. So it's important for our shoulders to have more mobility. So the shoulder pads will be different. And also we have in the chest area, because the ball is in that sort of, in that 3-dimensional space, there is a risk of hitting the heart and stuff, but a lot of the protection is really heavy in here. The next thing is that our arm guards are not like hockey. Hockey is a little bit open. They're a little bit smaller. Our arm guards, we have that for field is small, but for box lacrosse also, we've got like larger armor, more so to speak. So a lot of that stuff's covered up. Above and beyond that, helmets are different. Helmet eye slots are easier to see through. The helmet style changes between box lacrosse. It's often hockey, but field lacrosse has this unique style. Also, it's lightweight now. They made out of like carbon fiber when before they're like heavy plastic. And then other than that, it's just the stick itself has different, the stick has a head and a shaft. It's got a pocket. It's got mesh. It's got shooting strings. So all these little different nuances.
Yeah. And as sports evolve and things change, equipment definitely gets more high-end, more high-tech. Since you started playing, have you seen that change in equipment?
Oh, absolutely. And even it's changed so much. It's even hard to describe. If you go back to 80s, for instance, 80s, 70s, still using traditional wood sticks more often than not. The 80s introduced the plastic head, the aluminum shaft, and then from there, titanium came in. Now we're seeing carbon composite shafts. Helmets have gone from heavy plastic. In fact, the old days, just like hockey, some no helmet situations, and it evolved all the way through. Now you see some really fancy stuff, and I think that's a part of lacrosse. And I've said this before, if you know anything about lacrosse players, they're kind of fashionable, and then they really enjoy their swag. They enjoy their fashion. They have a whole subset of culture separate from hockey, separate from other sport, and to that, there's brands that are surrounding the sport now. And it's really evolving. It's really cool.
Nice. And I played hockey growing up. That was the only sport I played. And I know that the cost is pretty expensive, not going to lie. I was blessed to play hockey and play with the sport being so expensive with the equipment. I don't know about any other sports like football and basketball or even baseball, how much those cost. But what is the cost of getting into lacrosse compared to if someone wanted to get into hockey?
Yeah, the barriers, I believe, are a lot more, are significantly less when it comes to cost relative to hockey specifically. You want to touch upon the other sports? Often I find, it's been a while since I've been involved in baseball or football, but football for me growing up, the equipment was supplied because it is very expensive. You'd have to do a registration fee and a few other things like that. Jerseys were supplied. You'd return those type of items as well, unless you graduated out. Much the same, I believe, for baseball. A lot of uniforms were provided as well too, and then given back in some instances. And then there's a low cost of entry. Plus, you have the registration fee is a little bit lower. Lacrosse is much the same. We try and keep it very cost effective. I believe some registration fees, and you can't quote me because they vary per zone. We're geographically split up here. It will run you anywhere, and it depends on age group as well. So for the younger age groups, we try and keep it lower as an introduction. Plus the value, we have to make sure that there's value there. So you can run anywhere from 350 to, we'll call it, and this is a high end, and I haven't seen this number, but I'll say $500 just so you know, as of registration. On top of that, lacrosse equipment is not bad. It's pretty affordable. It can get expensive. You can get some. It's that in the respect is similar to hockey. So you can get the low end stuff and you can get the high end stuff as well.
So the high end stuff is going to be more expensive relative to hockey.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. No.
Hockey's its own industry, right?
Yeah.
Like it's really got its
right.
own thing. Lacrosse has its own industry as well. It depends on the materials, and the production runs in lacrosse, I believe, are a little bit less than hockey. So, but still, the introduction of things like lightweight materials, carbon fiber, carbon composite, Kevlar, those things are more in hockey / protecting type of things. Carbon composite is coming in for helmets for lacrosse, comes in for sticks, lightweight. So the barriers are a lot less. You need a pair of shoes, some protection down there. If some players don't wear that, which is absolutely crazy. But other than that, we don't have skates. Skates is I think one of the big barriers. The only big expense is like helmets. Some helmets going to run you up. That's for sure. So
yeah, for sure.
But not even the same. Like it would be hockey cost to lacrosse cost overall would be like 3 to 1.
Yeah.
So for a hockey year, you can get probably 3 lacrosse years.
Wow. Oh, that's crazy. Well, we're starting off by talking about your background in lacrosse. We're just going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to move into just what you do with the Red River Lacrosse Association as well as the Manitoba Lacrosse Association. So we're just going to hear from our supportive sponsors here, taking our first commercial break here on Coffee with Graeme. And Mark, stay with us.
Hi, I'm Nettie Weiss from Metalmaster. You had an accident? Sometimes they're embarrassing, but they're always inconvenient. We have an incredible staff to take care of you. We have platinum certified techs in 4 different categories. We are certified as a gold class accredited shop. If you've made a claim already, perfect. Call us with your claim number. If you need a claim opened, give us a call. We'll walk you through. Sometimes you can get a little nervous dealing with NPI. We'll help you out. From Metalmaster Auto Body, straighten it out.
Forsyth back on here with on Coffee with Graeme. Sorry, bumbling my words once again, but here with Marc Beghin, VP of the Red River Lacrosse Association, as well as he's involved in the Manitoba Lacrosse Association. And before we get into what you do with Red River, just want to start off with the Manitoba Lacrosse Association, what you do there. So first off, how did you get involved with the Manitoba Lacrosse Association?
Yeah, so 2 different parallels. I coached for a while and got familiar with the sport. And then it's just much like any other volunteer organization. We hold an AGM annually. And just last year, I got nominated for a director at large position, which is one of the more common positions, not a VP or not a president or anything to that effect, or treasurer, so not executive. But that's, so I contribute in the ways of helping policy come through, having a different voice. Being the vice president of the Red River Lacrosse Association allows me to bring a voice for box lacrosse specifically, although I have had experience in field lacrosse and I do understand the nuances that go with that in regards to field and at the provincial level. So really, we do focus on, it's the governing level, right? So there's the Canadian Lacrosse Association, Manitoba Lacrosse Association. From there, it's an umbrella organization that covers high school field, covers provincial programs, covers Red River Lacrosse Association, and any other club ones that are sanctioned under the provincial body. So from there, really, it's being a part of committees. It's doing things right for what's good for lacrosse, specifically what's good for lacrosse. And making sure that we move together in a direct forward position.
So what would you say the job looks like on the daily basis, being one of the directors at large at the Manitoba Lacrosse Association?
Yeah, I mean, we deal with a lot of, like, again, once I said, policy implementation. So, for instance, we're going through the COVID stuff, so we need to have some conversations like that. There is some funding, trying to start programs or help support programs that are out there within the lacrosse community. High performance is a main aspect for the Manitoba Lacrosse Association, and it's underneath its guise, and there's a big focus there. And then from there, really, it helps get the information down, rule changes, help facilitate learning clinics for coaches and for referees. That's the responsibility of Manitoba Lacrosse Association, to keep that stuff organized, and that's their contribution to the lacrosse.
So, since starting with your job, director at large of the Manitoba Lacrosse Association, what have been, besides this pandemic, what have been the biggest challenges you faced on the daily basis on the job?
You know what? I think a big part about it is harmony. Harmony in the sport's very important, and making sure that we're all moving in the right direction, making sure we're having the same conversations. Communication is a big issue. We really want to make sure that communication amongst the board members happens on a regular basis, so we're all informed. There's a lot of other initiatives in trying to ensure that coaching happens, facilitating and creating new coaches happens on a regular basis, as well as referees. Those are some struggles. Refereeing in general, and that's something that we've discussed previously on amateur sport television, is about the role of officials in sport in general, and that's something that we need to change. We need to be more supportive of our officials. We need to understand that they're developing at the same pace as athletes, and a lot of people lose that perspective. And if we don't have officials, we don't have a game. And I don't know where that's getting lost in translation in sport in general, not just with lacrosse, but we need to understand that those individuals are out there and they're doing the best they can, and we need to support them. And it's a development. They move at the same pace as a player, and sometimes less if there's not enough games. And that's the responsibility of Manitoba Lacrosse Association specifically, in order to progress refereeing and coaching within the sport.
You talk about the referees, and obviously, like, being a referee is never going to be easy. I mean, you're expected out there to make all these calls like a computer, basically, but we got to remember that they're human. So I find that really interesting that you say that, and it's really nice that you guys are taking that into account. Is there things or steps that you've taken as an association to kind of make it better?
Yeah, well, two different parallels. More effectively, my role is a lot more pronounced and more have more responsibility on the Red River Crosse Association. So that being said, we've taken, what it really is changing the culture and the dialogue, and having open conversations about it. Red River Lacrosse Association has taken some significant steps to improve that dialogue. And really make it a lot better to improve the situation for the referees. It's ongoing. We really only started to have that dialogue last year. We got some promotional material that's going to kind of come out with that, as well as that's coming down from the CLA also. So there are certain things that are happening. Really what it is having conversations, getting the word out there about, and then just having that expectation that, we hold these, and by the way, the majority of our referees are under 18 years of age, and holding a child to an unhealthy standard doesn't do anything for anybody. And the fact of the matter is that we need to put ourselves in check. And when I see an adult yelling at a kid, I have a problem with that. And I think we all should have a problem with that. And then when there's a lack of understanding, we need to work on that, because that's not fair for anyone.
Yeah, and I think a big thing of it is that these parents get so riled up, and so they feel like they're so involved in the sport, and they kind of lose sight of what's important. Like, if you're yelling at an underage kid, you don't look like the nicest person, for sure. I just want to move into the programs that you guys offer at the Manitoba Lacrosse Association. What do those look like?
As far as Manitoba Lacrosse Association goes specifically, again, it's facilitating coaches, it's facilitating referee learning, getting those individuals certified. It's a big portion of what they do. They also hold provincial lacrosse for field lacrosse specifically, not for box lacrosse, and although possibly in the future there's a potential for that, because now we have teams from places like Carberry, Brandon. I hear there's some activity out in Verdun happening, which is really great to hear. Plus, we have some other satellite communities, some First Nation communities. Eventually, we're going to roll all those into a box lacrosse provincial. So that's one main thing. But they also really focus on the high performance aspect of stuff. So Team Manitoba, field and box lacrosse. And the big exciting news that's coming up is the 2021 Canada Games, which lacrosse has been included, which has been a few years, I think since the 80s, that it hasn't been in there, which is really, really exciting. And there's a really big push for that. Big push for getting those coaches certified, because it's a higher level of coaching, getting the programs running, so on and so forth. So that's really the responsibility and some of the programs that the Manitoba Lacrosse Association runs.
And you were an assistant coach from 2011 to 2013. I just found this out yesterday from talking to you in private. And 1 year as an assistant coach with the Junior B Blizzard team in 2014. What were those experiences like, being an assistant coach there?
Amazing to say the least. Absolutely, both of those experiences are very unique in their own. Hopping on with an individual named Jim Newton. Jim Newton came from Saskatchewan over here, and he was transferred for work and brought some stuff. He's had a history of playing lacrosse himself and hockey out in Saskatchewan, and he really kind of and his son plays and played very well, very good lacrosse player. So I hopped on to that in the first year, not thinking much of it, with another individual that I played senior men's with, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I think it was the best thing in the world. Represent your province. There's nothing bigger, no bigger compliment than to represent about 1.5 million people of Manitoba. And we definitely have different personalities all across the nation, which is really interesting. And that comes out also in gameplay. So seeing the different styles and just the different ways of approaching situations, different attitudes, different levels of all this type of stuff was really fun to see. I had the benefit also at those times we were bringing in professionals. So Manitoba is a smaller community. It's harder to get more skilled individuals. We don't really have very many skilled individuals in the higher levels. There's some college players that have been here with like limited success, and it's only kind of growing. But back in the day, they brought in a Lewis Radcliffe, who was an incredible scorer in the professional league. So just being involved in these practices that he was running and just taking notes, and that's all I did. I have a clipboard. I still have stuff from way back then in my binder. And then getting a few other individuals coming in over the years to work with the team too, defensive minded. And then, so that really worked for Team Manitoba. It was fun. The big real thing was the kids, right? And being able to influence the young athletes and see them grow and see them get better and see them mature as a group was fantastic. And those years, those particular group of players, 98, 99, 2000 players, it went on to do some absolutely fantastic, successful things in lacrosse. And that group of players specifically has really, really brought lacrosse to the next level. There was a group of players before that kind of dipped their toe in things here and there, but that group of players, they went off to college. They won Rocky Mountain championships. They had great showings at Founders. Those were really that group of kids, and it's unique to be a part of. And it's funny because we're talking about The Last Dance with Jordan and seeing that team chemistry. And I've only personally been a part of 3 teams that have had that chemistry just like that, and that group was one of them. And they're I'm sure they're buddies. They probably all Snapchatting and talking with each other, tweeting at each other all now and stuff like that. So that was really amazing. The experience with the Blizzard was a little bit different. That's a traveling team that is based out of Alberta. Spend a lot of time on a bus. That was kind of the turnoff. Driving through the prairies with no air conditioning and 30-degree weather with just an air vent on the bus, cramped in on it was just the struggle's real, man. Like the struggle's real, and a lot of those players. That year was the first introduction year of the Blizzard, transitioned from the Griffiths Junior B to Blizzard, new ownership, new jerseys. Had the benefit of assistant coaching and learning from Kyle Buchanan, who's another phenomenal lacrosse player. And he's also very involved in the Lacrosse Players Association and NLL. He plays for the Seals currently in San Diego. Really great guy. Just amazing, whole different experience. I changed as a coach. I understood what it was a lot more, and I had a lot more respect for our players after that, because we're the only team that has to travel 16 hours to play league games. And that's the big thing with that Blizzard team, that they put in more kilometers than, and I'll say it right here, than any other lacrosse team in North America or the world. I'll go as far as the world to play their sport. So they play Saskatoon and in Calgary, Red Deer, Edmonton. The struggle's unbelievable. And they played 3 to 5 games in a weekend at the highest level. Much respect for all those players that have ever been a part of that program.
And then you made the jump to being the provincial head coach in 2015, all the way up till next year. I don't know if you're still the provincial head coach, but I'm assuming you are. But just talking about those experiences, the things you learned from the guys that you were assistant coaching with, do you think that made you a more well-rounded head coach that you wouldn't have been if you didn't get those experiences?
Yeah, so just first off to clarify, last year I just stopped. This year I decided to just step aside, and I didn't put an application in, just kind of let it ride, just to let things kind of go. After doing something for 10 years, you need a break.
Yeah.
But so for 2015 up to 2019, last year was head coached box lacrosse teams, one field lacrosse team. Yeah, you know what, if I didn't, and that's sort of the thing, is that a lot of times individuals don't want to put their work in, and that's common all over. You need to put your work in order to become successful. I feel that I've ran some incredibly successful programs over the years, and that I attribute that 100% to my days of assistant coaching and putting time in. You don't put your time in at that level, you're going to miss a lot of things. And so I got to learn great mentorship from Jim Newton specifically. Understood the game better after being a part of with those professionals, taking my notes, showing up every day, learning to deal with players also on the friendly basis, like the players coach, and then that morphs into now you're the head coach, and now you're crack the whip a bit. I'm still I'm very player centric. I think if they're not having a good time, there's no point doing it. That's just the way it is, and you got to kind of make it interesting for them. But as a result of all those times and putting my time in, learning so much, being on the bus, that gave me the skill set. Head coaching in itself has its own challenges, its own responsibilities, and you have to be ready for that type of thing. The program rests on your shoulders, and if a team is not prepared, that's your fault. And you have to make sure your team's always prepared. And that's something I kind of live by. I took it very much as a job. I spent over 300 hours a year for 10 years putting into that sport. This is my first year that now I have 300 hours back, which is fantastic and amazing, although we're all locked down. But you're absolutely right. Those experiences of being an assistant coach yield itself to head coach, and head coaching is very rewarding as well too, but it has its levels of stress. You have to understand the management of the team too. You have to understand dealing with parents. You have to understand dealing with officials. You have to understand dealing with different level, your parent, your association, the top association. You get in difficult situations in gameplay where you need to make sure that you're being respectful when you're at the tournaments. Like, it's just another level when you end up being a head coach.
Well, that's awesome to hear that you've had such a great time during your 10 years with Manitoba Lacrosse Association, having fun, really learning from all these experiences. It's really awesome to hear. We're going to move into the final part of our interview, but first we're going to hear from our sponsors one more time. This has been Marc Beghin on Coffee with Graeme with your host, Graeme Forsyth, and we'll go to our second commercial break here. So Marc, just hold tight with us, okay?
Are you looking for a career in the salon industry? Check out Aveda Institute Winnipeg in the Exchange. What sets us apart is our student mentorship program, 95% placement rate after graduation, real-world salon experience, and network of 7,000 salons and spas. You will learn creative cut and coloring, latest trends and techniques, social media marketing, fashion shows, photo shoots, and more. Now accepting applications for 2018, so check us out and book your tour today. Aveda Institute Winnipeg. Hair school the way it should be.
And Marc Beghin back here on Coffee with Graeme on Amateur Sports TV with your host, Graeme Forsyth. And we're just talking about his time in the first two parts of this interview about how he started in lacrosse and his time in the Manitoba Lacrosse Association. But his main role is being the VP of the Red River Lacrosse Association, and we're going to get into that now. So, Marc, how did you become the VP of the Red River Lacrosse Association?
Well, not an overly glamorous sort of ascension to vice president. We ran into a little bit of an issue in the league about 2 years ago. Well, it's 2 years ago now. And what essentially happening is that, after a certain amount of time, boards and organizations run out of steam. And it's important and it's healthy to have a certain circulation of individuals to move on and move the thing forward. So what we had was a bunch of individuals who'd ran the sport for a long time, getting tired of it and getting frustrated and needed some help. And what really happened is that in 2018, as head coach, we were playing in Saskatoon. The team that we took down there ended up getting fourth in the nation. We were one goal out of the national championship, and for our club, you have to understand, and for our province, that's amazing. That year we had 26 players out for tryouts, playing against Ontario that had 200 invite only, and BC who had 200 to 250 invite only also. So they're all future players, and they've been playing since like really small and everything. But we had this special team that really, really did well. Just shocked the nation. And I remember leaving Saskatoon thinking these guys can't come back into a league that's not at a certain level that we need to get there. So from there, I just sort of committed to being in for a couple of years here. I'm 2 years in. I have another year left of my current term. I just said I'm going to do my best to see what I can to make it better, specifically for that group of kids. So I talked about the 98, 99, 2000s. This other group of individuals, arguably, and I'm going to get some hate mail on this one, were even better or are even better. They're not even at the right age. They're in the second year of midget right now, kind of getting into junior. They had that chemistry too, and I talked about the three teams that I've only been a part of certain teams that have had that incredible chemistry, and they're one of them. They're very similar too, very modern. It was very interesting head coaching that versus assistant coaching that, and seeing the parallels and how the game had moved, and the individuals from back then set the example, because they're all the Blizzard players that team ended up kind of emulating and taking their style and watching grow up. So it's fun to be a part of those two generations of one that was really good, that set the example, and the other ones that took that example and ran with it. So that's what happened, is that we got in there. There are some roles to be filled. Put my hand up and started working hard on it, and started not being apologetic for stuff, and playing to win, not playing to lose, and doing what's right for the sport. And that's the number one narrative, is that a lot of times in sport, people have their own little personal agendas, and that's not good for anyone. You need to be there for the sport, and you need to be there to do what's right. And not to say that we had a bunch of those people. We had people that kept it together. Respect to them, period. But moving forward, we need to have a different perspective. So we brought that perspective, and we had really, really good changes out of that, to the point where we had probably about 8 people on the board last year. Now we have a full board, and that represents about 12 positions. I could be wrong, could be more than that. It's a big board that we have. We have a lot of positions, and it's a working board. So there's no paid individual. Everyone has to pull their weight. Everyone has different roles in different areas. So that's how the evolution that's how I kind of got involved, was in the spirit of what's right for lacrosse, specifically the sport, and what can we do to make it better. So that's how I entered it.
So you talked about how the board has really grown over the years. How nice is it to see that the board has grown so much and is such a strong association now?
You know what? It's a team. It's a team. And that's the thing, is like a team, it goes through phases. Yeah. These boards, these organizations in general go through phases. And the thing is that that team, was kind of coming to the previous team was just coming to the end of its life cycle, and it done it for 10 years. So let's be serious. 10 years is a long time to be a part of something, and the momentum's tough. To having it next, like last year, kind of moving into a different perspective. And then this year, and our year's kind of starting in October, so we're kind of taking a hit here. There was more stuff done this year than there was done in many, many years. It's absolutely amazing. And everyone on the board is a team, and everyone pulls their own weight, and everyone has a different role and a different voice, but everyone contributes to moving in the same direction. That's what's really amazing to see, how our board has evolved, how we've come together. The dialogue is so much better. The intentions are so much better. People's hearts are all in the right place, and that's really important. That's what's really great about the Red River Lacrosse Association board, is that everyone's heart's in the right direction. We're moving in the right direction, and we're the ones that can specifically impact lacrosse. And they're the, that group is the one that really drives the sport. They're the ones that really make the differences.
And we talked about your role with the Manitoba Lacrosse Association. How does because the VP, obviously a pretty big role of any company, what are the challenges on a daily basis that you find being a VP? Okay,
so again, Manitoba Lacrosse Association, provincial board, Red River, local league board. So at MLA, I'm just a director. So I contribute in sort of in a different way. And not I don't want to say less or more capacity, but it's a lesser capacity because it's on an executive level. Red River, more of a capacity. So, it's a different way, but I don't look at it like that. I look at it as like, just like coaching. I look at it as coaching or being a captain of a team is just like, I don't have any more of a voice than anybody else. I might have a vision. I might have some accountability aspects to myself, and that's like any organization. But, everyone, it's tough because you need a pecking order and things, but at the end of the day, everyone is on the same level, and everyone really kind of pitches in. And that was sort of what I was trying to like say, is that we're all on the same team, and everyone has different roles that we have. And it's important to like kind of remember that. So it's not like it's tough or hard being VP. It's fun and rewarding. Yeah.
So it's always nice when you're doing something and you're having fun with it, for sure. What types of programs does the RRLA offer?
Good question. I was waiting for this one. Okay, here we go. So number one, obviously our programming has a lot to do with providing a structured league for individuals to play box lacrosse in Winnipeg, but also Manitoba. So we're kind of branching out. We have a couple satellite communities. We have one out in Garson area that kind of encompasses somewhat of St. Andrews, Selkirk area, Lockport too, and then Beausejour. And then we have Saugeen First Nation out in Saugeen. They're their own zone as well too, so they're a part of our league. And then we have geographically in the city, it's really kind of split up, kind of like an X in a way, sort of. The south has a zone, east, west, north, and then it looks like we might have another zone coming in on board. Knock on wood, I'm not revealing anything. I'm not going to say anything out of the southern part of Manitoba. Hopefully we can get a couple teams out of that. So we provide that. That's what we do, facilitate that, organize that all the way up until like finals. So gameplay, finals. On top of that, each zone provides play lacrosse opportunities, and this is where individuals who are new to the sport can come and play around, shoot a stick, understand scooping, catching, passing on the very basic level. And that this year was an absolute success, especially out of the west with the Shamrock Zone, which is like Charleswood, a portion of River Heights, St. James, Headingley, that whole area. They were having so many kids that they had to turn away some. And it's of all ages, which is a real attribute to their leadership over there. They've done a really, really good job. Wade Garriock, Mark Kennedy have done really, really good jobs out there, and just pushing it. Plus all the players that are out there. You can't forget the players are the drivers of all this, right? So if they're telling their friends to come out and play, that's kind of how it is, right? So those are one of the things that we're really excited about. We had really good numbers out of the north. The Falcons, they did a really, really good job also getting numbers out. And the Griffins out of the east. The biggest zone of the south was getting all new players out. We were really ramping up for this year, hopefully like ballooning our numbers and getting it to the next level. So that's one thing. So it's called Tri Lacrosse. It's an entry level situation. Those are one of the things that I need to, or pardon me, that that we need to focus on in order to grow the game. We also have some other special things that are happening too. New to the league, new to the board, was a board, 2 board positions. One is a director of female box lacrosse, and then the next one was director of Indigenous initiatives. Brand new, amazing. Yeah, amazing situations. Sorry, I just had someone behind here like giving me waves. 2 amazing initiatives that took off. Crystal Anderson and John Harding. John Harding specifically for the Indigenous initiatives really took this on. Working with Manitoba Métis Federation, building gaps and bridges with our First Nations community. Very, very important for a sport that is a good portion of the future of the sport. It's part of the heritage, it's part of reconciliation. That's a word that we're using. We really want to make sure that we contribute to that. This sport was born by Indigenous individuals and modified by Canadian, the rest of the individuals. But at the end of the day, bridging those gaps, John Harding and his crew have done an amazing job, including getting drop-in similar tri-lacrosse programs inside the inner city, which has been very hard for us to crack for some reason here in Winnipeg. But now we're getting in there. We're working with Manitoba Aboriginal Sport Council, which is a really, really fantastic, partnering with them to move that initiative forward. And then Crystal Anderson working towards female box lacrosse with the Red River Lacrosse Association has done a great job also in conjunction with the Manitoba Lacrosse Association and their 2021 games. Moving things forward. Never had female lacrosse in this province at all, and it was high time that we did something about that. It's 2020. It's time that there's no reason for. We do have females in the league, so don't get me wrong, they're out there playing there, but we don't have female leagues, much like out west and out east do. So we're really pushing hard, and we had big numbers, 60, 70, 80 young females of all different ages come and be a part of this stuff. So we're really excited about those things. Those 2 initiatives are really, really excited about. They're moving forward. That's how we're going to move the sport forward, is making sure that we focus on underrepresented or not properly represented groups to move it forward, not just the traditional streams.
And so moving on, read on your website that you guys did make the decision to cancel the 2020 season. Why the decision to pull the trigger and cancel the season right now?
First and foremost, has everything to do with Health Manitoba and the provincial government and the Canadian government. If something's not safe, we have to make sure, and we have a duty as caretakers and as stakeholders in order to make sure that our sport runs in a safe and manner for everybody, and not just for our people, but for all society. At the end of the day, it does trickle down, and we have to be sanctioned all the way from Canadian Lacrosse Association to Manitoba Lacrosse Association and moving down from there. So it's part and parcel. Provincial government has non-contact going right now, or should I say no? Well, the next phase will be non-contact. We're a contact sport. We're close quarters. Unfortunately, we don't kind of fit into that. I think it's a no-brainer. Everyone has support from it. It was one of the easiest decisions. We don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want anyone to pass away as a result of our actions, and we don't want us to be the sport that made an inappropriate decision to continue on.
Right. That's great. You don't want to, in a time like this especially, you don't want to risk the health of others just to play the sport. Sports are great, but life is so precious, and it's great that you guys are taking those steps. In the statement, it also said that you guys are looking at camp options that could follow the guidelines for the province of Manitoba. What do some of those guidelines look like?
So those are still in discussion. We haven't had anything set. I'd be remiss if I came on here and started saying a bunch of things that weren't approved by the rest of our team members at the Red River Lacrosse Association. So it's discussions. It's seeing what we can do. I know just recently that some of the training for the 2021 games through the Manitoba Lacrosse Association, they've just started an initiative there, a couple Zoom calls to do some individual training and some things like that, which is great. Sticks in hands, and that's actually one of our mottos in lacrosse, is sticks in hands. If you get sticks in people's hands, the sport kind of happens. That's high level training, so that's happening. As far as Red River Lacrosse is concerned, we have some barriers and it's kind of challenging. We would like to get something going, but it's not so much when we can start as when we can finish. And what we have here is a natural cycle for all sports and everything. So every sport has a season, a seasonality, right? So, but what we're running into is that the opening of the province and opening of physical, or should I say sports athletics, for us is running into hockey. So we use hockey facilities quite a bit, indoor facilities. So if we can't get into those facilities in a timely manner, it's hard for us to provide value to our membership and to the players. So having a season that's like 2 weeks long doesn't work. We need a good chunk of time because it's also physical. It's a physical sport. So if we can't get players up and training and getting ready for gameplay, the risk of injury, the risk of something ridiculous happening is higher. And we don't want to do that. So we want to make sure that individuals are prepared to get into the box, into the arena. And with that, I mean, we're running into a little bit of barrier because time's going by very quickly and hockey season's coming up. And hockey does pay the bills in a lot of these rinks because that's what they're designed for. And we have to respect that and respect their sport.
And obviously, every association, every business out there has been affected by this pandemic, and they found ways to adapt. So, how has the RRLA found ways to adapt during this pandemic?
Pretty common to everybody else. Zoom calls, video chats, right? We actually just had. We were doing a lot of emails with the MLA. We tried a phone call. It was kind of weird. But we're doing the Zoom chat, and there's really something to say about having a face-to-face, much like what we're doing right now too. Connecting with people, as they say, like 90% of communication is nonverbal, right? So it's very important to see each other, maintain that connection, understand why we're there. Again, it's a team, and there's just something about seeing each other's faces when you're there for the same reason, for the same cause, no matter what it is. That really kind of lights you up and kind of gets you going, keeps you motivated during this really tough time.
Well, Mark, it's been a pleasure talking with you today this morning on Coffee with Graeme. Thanks for joining the show, and hopefully everything works out and we get back to normal soon. It's been really great talking to you, and we hope to see you on the show in the near future. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Of course. Have a good one. And that's, let me get rid of the banners here and the brand. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I butcher this outro today, but no, all jokes aside, it was great talking with Marc Beghin today, VP of the Red River Lacrosse Association, really getting an insight of how they're adapting during this pandemic and what measures they're taking to kind of see the options of getting back to normal. And of course, in this tough time, they're doing as well as any company out there. It sounds like it. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's edition of Coffee with Graeme. And it was a fantastic show today. I thought I had a great time talking to Mark, really getting to know his background in lacrosse and what he really does with the Red River Lacrosse Association, as well as his background in coaching. And we hope to have Mark on the show once again, as I told him. And yeah, it was just great to talk to you. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. And once again, during this quarantine, during this pandemic, stay safe, stay at home, and join us again on our next episode and grab your cup of joe. And we'll always be here to provide you this content. And yeah, thank you to our supportive sponsors for supporting the show once again. Without you guys, none of this happens. I say this a lot, but I really do mean it. And yeah, until next time, I'm your host, Graeme Forsyth with Coffee with Graeme on Amateur Sports TV, and we're signing off.